Welcome to the Profitable Cleaner podcast. Join your hosts, James Harper and Angel Sandoval, bringing you the experts, discussions, and knowledge you want. We talk about sales, technology, marketing, operations, strategy, leadership, mindset, health, God, and so much more. Now, are you ready to profit?
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Profitable Cleaner. Today, I get one of my own, Mexicano, but no, I'm excited to have you today. Help me welcome José Alfredo Suárez, brother. How are you doing, man?
Uh, Angel, thank you very much for having me on board. Mexicano hasta la, you know how they say, and just wanted to, on behalf of all the Mexicans, say congratulations to everybody for the Gold Cup win. Definitely a great game yesterday. Just trying to catch up on a little bit of sleep. It definitely was a good victory, and one that was long overdue. So thank you for having me on
100%.
board. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. And, for those listening, again, and I like to reiterate this, but those that you're listening to right now, they're your keynotes, they're your roundtable leaders, they're the people that have committed to being part of our Cleaning Profits event and really help you all bring some value. And today, Mr. Suarez, I feel like a long name. I like it. Jose, why don't you tell people, give them like that 2 3 minute introduction on yourself, on what they're gonna, who you are, what you're doing right now, and a little bit about you.
Sure. So, Jose Alfredo Suárez, I do use my middle name. I am a risk management consultant. I've been in insurance now going close to 20 years. I essentially worked my way up from the mailroom, print room, all the way to customer service representative, to account manager, to account executive. Worked on the insurance carrier side, and now I work as a producer, a risk management consultant. So I'm essentially a broker that works with business owners to help them analyze their current coverage, their current insurance program, and then broker it out to a different contracts that we have with different insurance companies to get them not only the best deal as far as rates, but also the best coverage, and then also act as a consultant. It's not where I would partner with somebody and I would disappear. I would work with them, help them with their business until they continue to scale. And as they grow, I grow alongside with them. So I represent companies in all different industries, anywhere from 1 million revenue to 100 million in revenue. And I've been doing this for a long time and coming up from the basically the bottom up, the ground up. I've seen it firsthand how you service an account to now how to be a consultant. So it's been a great journey. It's definitely brought a lot of blessings, and I've helped a lot of people along the way. So I'm very, very happy to be here and where I am today.
So I have a few questions about your story, but for those that are not listening, I mean, just go check out his LinkedIn. He's also a serial entrepreneur. I mean, I know we are talking about a little bit before the podcast, and I'll keep it super focused on the insurance. But I know you're also the co-founder of the Executive Latino Council, Latino Real Estate Investor Council, and then you guys have a property management company. What kind of inspired you to get in like really intensely with the Latinos? Because I'll be fully transparent, man. I'm Mexican, Juarez. I just came back from there visiting and everything, and I feel like sometimes, especially when you cross over, I don't want to say you forget about it, because I don't, but you almost want to mold yourself into like an American, if that makes sense. Back in, so I actually noticed I wasn't involved in a lot of Latino communities and a lot, because I was trying to really make myself part of the American culture, right? But so I'm just really curious, after I met you and Elisa's, which we had on the podcast. You guys are
Mhm.
heavily involved in the Latino community. What made you want to stay with the Latino community and build businesses around it?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that story and to what drives me. Number one, I was born and raised in Chicago, Humboldt Park community. So all around me was always Latinos, essentially Puerto Rican. The Puerto Rican community, I grew up really heavily in there. I worked in a little village, so a heavily Mexican community. All the way up until it was time to go to college. I played soccer. I got grant and some scholarships to attend Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa. So I got basically plucked out of Chicago and then thrown in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa. No offense, to attend a liberal arts college. And at that point, I realized, like, wow, what I thought was my comfort zone, what I thought was me being, strong with my identity. I realized not everybody's like me, not everybody speaks like me, not everybody comes from the same background. And I think at that time it was about 97% Caucasian, maybe 3% Latinos on campus. I can count with one hand. And my name was Jose, right? I was dark skinned and I played soccer, right? So there was no escaping who I was, my identity was. So I had two choices. I could either try to blend in and try to like fit in with the crowd and whatnot and not really be my true self, or I could do the complete opposite and say, you know what? I am Mexican. I'm here. This is who I am. This is what I like. This type of music I like. This is what I like to dance. This is what I like to eat. So I went all in. I'm like, I'm gonna fully embrace who I am. I'm not gonna hide. If people are gonna make fun of me, if they're gonna make jokes, whatever, then I'm gonna give jokes right back. I'm gonna barter. Like it was never anything where it's threatening. I never felt that anybody was trying to abuse me or anything like that. It was more like, just riffing. And I got really good at developing a thick skin, at becoming comfortable with myself. And I really had to do that if I was going to graduate, right? Because if I started thinking about all the advantages that all these other students had against me growing up in the public school system with like metal detectors and gangs and not even having the classes that I needed to, that would have been, I would have been in my head the entire time. I was like, I'm not doing that. So I ended up graduating. When I left Cornell, I was actually the president of the Organization for Latino Awareness. So that's always been in my blood, to represent Latinos, to bring different ideas and culture into exposing other people into what we did. We were responsible for bringing the first folklorico group to Cornell College, the campus. We used their stage. We had them dance. Um, and I also ended up leaving as the president of our fraternity, Alpha Chi Epsilon. So I developed a good band of brothers. I developed a good reputation on campus of not only being outgoing, but also of caring about the community. So that's something that's always kind of just followed me along, and it's the community that I'm in. It just happens to be that Latinos, I gravitate towards them. So that's the first part of the kind of the identity question. The second part is the entrepreneurial spirit. So for a long time, I always wanted to do something on my own. I always wanted to start a business or be my own boss. And I looked around my father's side of the family where I grew up, and I didn't really see that. Everybody was an employee. I'm like, I kind of fit differently, and I didn't see it, so I couldn't really mold myself after anybody. Well, about 7 years ago, I found out, like, some history about myself, and I found out that, um, and I'm sharing this, so I'm very comfortable sharing this because I'm an open book, right? I found out that my father, who I thought my father, was actually my stepfather, and my biological father was actually still alive and in Mexico, and I had a whole nother side of family that I had no idea existed, by the last name of Fabian. So I started connecting with the Fabians, and I had, eight aunts and uncles and cousins and whatnot. And I started, it was all through my grandma, who was still alive. So I visit my grandma, and I start hearing everybody's story. And it's like, oh yeah, your uncle, he owns his own truck company. Oh yeah, your tia, she owns her own cleaning company. Oh yeah, he owns ponchos, like it's similar to La Michoacana, the ice cream
Sí, sí,
shops.
cómo no.
Yeah, yeah. So, like every single aunt and uncle had their own business. They were all their own bosses. All the cousins were following the footsteps. I learned about my grandfather, that he was politically involved. He was an entrepreneur. And I was like, wait, he loved athletics. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I get it now. Like I get all that from that side of the family. And when I realized that they could do it and they were successful, it really gave me the confidence to start opening up my own businesses, which I had already done in a way, but it was time to formalize them. The real estate, the property that we own, the units that we manage, it was time to do that. And it was time to show other Latinos how to use that to build wealth. From the insurance standpoint, I became a producer where I do work for a company called Alera Group. It's a $1 billion revenue company. We've got 4,000 employees, but it's my own practice, right? I decide what clients I don't work with. I decide, how to manage my team, where to spend my time. So I really don't have anyone oversee me. I am an entrepreneur, and I am out there to create my own partnerships. So those two things, and then outside of that, I started realizing in this space, business owners need as much help as they can get. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you're from. If you need payroll help, if you need HR help, if you need help financial planning, employee benefits, I do the business insurance, I do surety bonding, I do risk management consulting. I started seeing that, I had these referral partners that were all Latinos in the same circle. And, no one had put it together where it was like, hey, wait a minute, we're doing all these one-off referrals. Why don't we collaborate? Why don't we create a council where we can all sit down together and discuss who are those clients that are asking for help? Who are those clients that we have that just need a little bit more guidance to get them over from the $1 million revenue range to the $10 million revenue range, right? What are they missing? What can we add to the table? So we formalized it and we ended up co-founding it as a company. And in June we had our inaugural launch. It was on a yacht over on Lake Michigan that did a tour, 3-hour tour. Everybody came back safe, but it was all entrepreneurs. We had about 200 people on board, so it was business owners, procurement specialists, because what else do we want to do? We want to get these folks to get contracts. We want them to understand that if you want to work with the CTAs, you want to work with the Metras, you want to work with the state, you want to work federal, or you want to work for private individuals who are high net worth and have properties and opportunities, well, let's get you in front of them. And then we sprinkled in some political officials as well. So now we had aldermen, we had state representatives who can help you on the legislative side, folks who help you get contracts, other business owners who know what struggles you go through. And obviously, if you need any of that professional services assistance through any of our consultants, the Executive Latino Council was there to help. So the only thing that unites us is that we're all Latino, but our clientele is very diverse in its background. And I see that in the cleaning industry, right? It's not just one group that's out there. It's just different groups. It's a collection of real people, and that's what really draws me to helping cleaning company business owners, because they're real people. They're people who probably had a mop and a bucket just
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago and decided like, hey, I'm gonna go and do it. And I relate to that story, right? Because I was the guy who was helping out with the insurance, kind of figuring out to now being a business owner, and helping them along the same route. So I understand that struggle. I feel for them, I empathize with them, and I want to help them kind of reach those revenue goals that they're looking for. So it's been a great journey, and every day is a blessing, man. I gotta say.
That is true. That is a fact. Every day's a blessing, man. So let's get, I mean, there's a lot of areas that we can pull from, but let's get into, what we're going to get you to go to the event for, right?
Hmm.
Which, um, risk management. Let me ask you, what are some of the things that maybe people don't, companies, and let's try to say companies above, above 2 million. Let's think of like bigger companies, I guess. I like to, because I feel like if there's a lesson for a big one, that's something a smaller company should already start thinking of if they're expecting the growth. But if we only give lessons on the small side, somebody listening to this that's 10, 20, 40, 50 million is going to be like, well, I knew that. So let's focus on the big one if it's okay with you. Let's say 300 employees, 7 million about, I believe that comes out to 6 million plus. So let me ask you, for those companies, what kind of risk are they managing? Like, how do you jump in here? Because I'm sure a lot of them don't even, most companies you talk to are probably not set up formally the way they should. It's really rare when we talk to someone, and then I talk to like one of our mentors, and I'm like, whoa, these are fully set up, and then these are still running as if they were 10 people. So what are some of those risks that they need to start getting in front of now, especially in the insurance side? Because that's a big play, especially with so much labor, so much equipment, so much like liability is huge in the industry. So like walk us a little bit through that.
Absolutely. So So I see risk management consulting as three pieces, right? So number one, it's what do you have for your risk transfer? So a lot of these bigger companies are using a lot of subcontractors. So the first question I ask is, okay, can I get a copy of your subcontract agreement? Because I want to take a look at it and I want to make sure that all of that risk that you're taking on from your partnership. So you sign a contract with the owner. Let's say it's CVS Pharmacy, right? CVS has just now hired you to clean out all of their stores across the United States. Well, guess what? You only operate in 10 of those states, and you've got 30 more states that you got to cover because it's a 40 state, let's say, reach. So now you've got to figure out how to not only, hire these subcontractors, but how to make sure that if they suffer a claim, right, they accidentally, let's say burn down a building or leave a machine running on too long, cause an explosion, something that can happen, or cause damage to a lot of their customers because a floor is too slippery. Let's just running a scenario. The last thing you want to do is to find out that that subcontractor's insurance excludes whatever that coverage is, and then all of a sudden you've got to eat that claim, right? And now you're taking on claims from all these different companies because your agreement wasn't strong enough to push all of that risk towards those subs. So a strong subcontract agreement is going to do that, and also having the proper coverages so that if a claim does sneak through the cracks to you, then your policy is going to respond. I've ran into scenarios where I'll read a policy and it's maybe a prime. We call them primes, where you're a large enough company to sub out all the work, and it'll say this policy, this coverage excludes any damages to work performed by subcontractors, right under general liability policy. So I go, hey, do you know that basically you don't have any coverage if any of the subs file a claim? So if their insurance denies it and you're the primary person holding that contract, you've got to take on this claim. And they'll say, I didn't know that. My broker didn't tell me that. My agent didn't tell me. I'm like, well, yeah, essentially you have what I consider a pretty not useless policy, but a toothless policy where you're not going to be able to use it to protect your business. And at the end of the day, all insurance is just risk transfer. It's just, either you're going to transfer the risk to the sub or you're going to transfer the risk to the insurance company. The last thing you want to do is transfer the risk onto yourself. These claims can go from on the liability side, on the auto side. I mean, they'll go up, high in a heartbeat. And if you don't have anything to respond to that, then obviously, that's going to be something that you're going to have to pay out of pocket, which is going to eat into your profits, and it's going to maybe even, threaten your company from being in business.
All right, hang with me for the next minute and a half. We got a quick break here in the Profitable Cleaner because we're officially official. It's like I like to say it. Why? Because I get to take this break and introduce our sponsors. First sponsors is USource. So go to usource.com. That's usource.com. This is a business management platform for facility services companies. No more chaos, unnecessary admin work, or just having to consolidate information. This is about you not being the source of information anymore and having a platform that can give you the accessibility, visibility, and control over your operation. So see more, do more, whether you're one employee or 3,000 employees, this is the platform for you. So check out our sponsor, usource.com. Our second sponsor, dayporter.com. They will help you with all your outbound, LinkedIn, email, call, and they're going to do it with a team from Latin America. So make sure that you reach out to them, dateporter.com. They can help you hire your next superstar and give you the strategies to go book the walkthroughs that you're looking for. The third one is going to be Melgar Consulting. That's alexmelgar.com. If you're hovering around the $5 million range and you're in the facility services industry, want to hit those 20, want to keep bumping your head and really want to scale, he is going to be able to consult and help you have the right foundation, the right structure, and the right strategies, and the right advisory and consulting to get you past those 5 to 20 million. So go to alexmelgar.com. And last but not least, our fourth sponsor, cleaningprofits.com. That is our annual event for facility services, CEO, executive teams, leadership teams. Bring them out. This is all about transformation. It's all about training, it's all about community, and it's held once a year, this year, September 12th to the 14th. So thank you once again to all of our sponsors, and let's continue on to the show. I like how you said that risk transfer. It's about transferring risk. I like that. So it's managing risk, but that's being able to like move it to the right channel. What are some kind of like I don't want to say myths, but like we're all programmed to think some way. By the time we get to certain businesses, like a lot of people think insurance is bad, right? Or no, I don't really
Mhm.
need insurance, right? Is there some What are some like common mistakes people make when thinking like this? Because I guarantee you, a lot of people listening to this are gonna go back and review all their subcontractor agreements, especially the liability portion. God forbid something does happen. I mean, if it does, you're talking millions. It's not. It could be hundreds, thousands. It could be a couple. But if you have a national account like that and something, God forbid, does happen, and they have the right insurance, then it comes down to you, right? So, what are some common mistakes that people make? So, one is having the wrong insurance, not having the right subcontractor agreement. What are some other ones that you've seen that you're like, yeah, we need to like if they're listening to this, they're like, okay, how do I audit myself right now? How do I look at this so I can either hit up Jose at the event or give him a call right now because I need to see if I'm protected.
So that's a great question. I would say where I see a lot of business owners make a mistake is they see insurance as something negative because it doesn't generate any return on investment. They see it as
Hmm.
something where they're paying in, nothing happens, and then they just lose the money, right? They don't see it as an investment where they can make some, protect their company by having proper policies, and then if nothing happens, God forbid, you're good. But if something does happen, you can file a claim. So if you're talking about companies that are anywhere between, let's say, 30 and 50 million in revenue, and they're paying over $250,000 in insurance, there's different programs out there that are called captive insurance programs or loss sensitive programs where you can actually get paid back up to 65% of the insurance premium that you put into the program if you have a strong, solid year with little to no claims. So
Hmm.
let's say you pay $100 at the end of the year in a regular insurance program, that $100 is gone. In a captive program, you put $100 in, it gets transferred to a fund that returns a rate of about 6% year after year over the average life cycle of the market. And after about 3 years, you actually get paid dividends on your insurance on those funds that you made that would go back to the company. So we're talking about if it's $100, here's $65 because you had a great year. Now you multiply that by 250,000, $1 million in premium, and that's one of the most we talk about being we talk about being first, fast, cutting edge, what's going on. As far as insurance, captive insurance is starting to pick up really, really fast because it's a way that business owners can make some money back. And similar to that, a loss sensitive program or a dividend program would be something similar where if you're paying that much money, hey, I want to bet on myself. I want to see if I don't have any losses, I can get a dividend back with like a dividend stock by being owner of the insurance company, paying me back because I had a clean year. The downside of that, and I don't want to get into too much about captives, but if you do have you have to be really clean company. You have to know your risk. You have to almost be accepted into a type of club to be part of
Yeah.
this because you're pulling the risk with a lot of different companies. But if you're able to get to that point, now you use insurance as a way to generate an ROI. So now it's like, hey, I
And
don't need insurance.
that's a dividend stock program you said?
Dividend stock program or a captive insurance program. So back in April, I had a captive seminar. I invited, we had about 8 business owners who can qualify for the program. And they were all like, I never knew this program existed. I didn't know what this was. And then once a year, they go to the Cayman Islands to kind of do a board meeting, which is
Yeah.
part business and part like hanging out because the funds themselves, the trust has to be outside of the United States for it to work. So it
Interesting.
sounds yeah, it sounds like it's complex, but when you break it down to it, it's just about numbers. And we have contracts with those captive insurance companies that can set something like that up. So that's for the bigger companies. For the smaller companies, let's say the medium-sized companies, where I
Yeah.
see
Let's
where
go
they
like 2 to 10. Let's go to two to like 2 to 5 now, or
per
or even smaller if you want. It's up to you. That way,
two to,
because you're right,
two to
captive sounds fun, but I'm like, how many of them would qualify? What are the qualifications, real quick, for a captive?
just like that, you have to be paying over 250,000 in insurance premium annually. So
Okay,
you've got some companies that are there, right? That are or approaching that. So what do you need to know to prepare for that once you get there? For
gotcha.
companies that are under, so let's talk about how much you pay in insurance instead of how much they make.
Mm.
So for companies that are from anywhere between, let's say they're paying 50,000 to 250,000, where I see the biggest mistakes made are in those extra lines of coverage that they feel like they don't need, right? And that speaks highly to me is cyber liability insurance, right? Like, oh, I don't need cyber, it's just an extra coverage. I've got my GL, I've got my auto, I've got my work comp. I'm set. So I'll say, hey, cyber is pretty inexpensive. The rates are going down. Why don't we quote you for it? They'll say, I don't need it. Next thing you know, one of their employees or they get an email saying, hey, please wire me this money. I've just changed companies. This is my new
Yeah,
bank
yeah.
account. You know, whatever that is, that's called phishing. They go ahead and say, oh, this is my boss, same tone, same email, telling me to wire this money to a new vendor. And you wire the money, 3 weeks later. And I'm telling you from these stories,
Experience, yeah, yeah.
just this year, I've heard this like maybe 8 stories just this way. They call
Yeah,
the vendor.
I've heard 3 on fishing this year
Yeah,
alone. Yeah.
yeah. So, hey, where's my money? We've been waiting, we've been patient. And like, what do you mean? I sent that money to you over 3 weeks ago. We never got any money. You look at the email, all of a sudden, the zero was an O or the O was a
Yeah.
zero, and that money was gone. So traditionally, you're out of pocket. But with a cyber liability policy, they actually cover you for phishing attacks, for fraud, for cyber fraud, for different sublimits that you can at least file a claim to see if you can be made whole. The other is, something called employee practices liability, which is, and this happens a lot in the janitorial space. You do a lot of hiring, you do a lot of firing, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
person doesn't show up, third strike, I'm gonna fire you. And then next thing you know, they're filing a lawsuit for you for wrongful termination. Oh, you fire me because I'm old. You fire me because I'm a different ethnicity. You fire me, and it's like, no, I fired you because you didn't show up, right? But in the court of law, it's almost like, can you prove it, or what can they prove? Employee practices liability actually has a limit for your company to pay not only for the legal expenses, but for any findings that are found from that. So again, employee practices liability and cyber liability insurance are two of the key pieces that should be going with a janitorial company as add-ons and almost like mandatory, so that they can have the peace of mind to sleep at night without worrying if a claim is going to happen. And again, are you paying out of pocket? Are you transferring that risk, or are you eating the risk?
Would you say that at any level, janitorial,
At,
for
at
those
any,
two?
I would say so. Yeah, even if as once you start hiring employees, you understand the exposure that you're bringing onto yourself and your company.
Yeah.
Obviously, at a smaller scale, you can always just close doors and you try again, right? If something knocks your business out. But once you get into that, I've been in this business for 5 years. My company is 10 years old. My company is 15 years old.
Yeah.
You don't want to just have to fold up because of some bad characters or a bad contract. You want to make sure that you have those things in place. And one of the reasons why I got into insurance was because my stepfather was an entrepreneur, and he took on a lot of account receivables during the '07, '08 time.
Mm.
And in 2008, all those account receivables went bad, and he had
Yeah.
over $250,000 worth of account receivables that he couldn't collect on. And he kept going, he tried, but that was just a big hole to dig from.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the economy wasn't doing well, so he ended up having to close his doors. And thinking back now, I'm like, man, if my father only had credit insurance, if he had something to protect himself against those account receivables, he could have filed a claim against the insurance company. They would have paid him out, and then they would have went after the collections of all of those
What did
receivables.
you call that one?
That's called credit insurance.
Credit insurance. I
Hmm.
feel like, especially me, like, so like we're learning about business a lot, and we're like, oh man, like when I talk to you and Ulises, me and James were just taking notes. We're like, okay, we gotta yeah, make sure we're set up properly. Um, do you feel like, I mean, I still feel like there's some people that still don't know how to even begin these conversations. I really hope they listen to this podcast and start beginning these conversations internally, because they're assuming that nothing's going to happen, but something will happen, right? I mean, there's all kinds of insurance. Huh? You already dropped like six, seven different ones, and I'm assuming there's a lot, right? So how can we turn that overwhelming process, or what do you do with you and your processes in your company to turn like almost like that overwhelm into such a easier step? Because as soon as you say like you need to get insurance, it sounds complicated. Sounds like I need to
It,
know a lot, right? That's what people think automatically.
Correct. You're right. And insurance can seem daunting, overwhelming. And, I've put a lot of insurance programs together. I worked in the small business space for almost 5 years, helping companies that were starting up. That's how I grew into this role now, working with mid-sized companies. So I know their struggle, right? It's like, hey, maybe has been a side hustle of theirs. Then they want to take it where they want to get clients, so they formalize their LLC. Then their favorite customer or client says, "Hey, I love you, but for you to work here, you're going to need to get insurance." That's always a
Yeah.
conversation, right? So then they're like, "All right, I got to get insurance." So my first question is there a contract? What is their agreement, right? Because they're transferring risk too. They're transferring risk onto
Mm,
you. So what are they asking for? Let's see what coverages they're asking for. Okay, can you get away with just general liability and workers' comp? Can you get away with just general liability if it's just you and your wife working, a spouse team, and you don't really need to have workers' comp because you're an owner, right? You can exclude yourself. So let's take a look at what you can do to kind of get the ball rolling. And as you grow and as you generate more income, you start seeing his insurance as almost like an item on your profit and loss where you just got to pencil it in. You got to say, I'm gonna make $100,000 this year, but I know insurance is gonna cost me 10,000. So I already know in my mind it's only gonna be 90,000. I'm not gonna try to skimp on those 10 to put it back in my pocket and then gamble with my company by not carrying any insurance because you
what's a
can get
healthy
away.
what's a healthy percentage there, by the way? Is it 10%? Like if like is it based? Do you have a certain recommendation? Like if I say, hey, I'm a $1 million company, is there usually like, oh yeah, we should be looking at least 1%, or we should be looking at averaging, you know.
So if they were in a heavy trade, I would say 10% is a good ideal number. But for janitorial where there's less exposure, there's less chances of something, depending on what you're doing, right? If
Yeah, if
if you're
you're like
not doing
cleaning
any
hospitals or
maintenance,
something, then yeah.
then it gets a little bit more expensive. But even then, you shouldn't be any more than 5%.
Mm.
And I average my clients average anywhere between 1% and 3% of whatever that overall income revenue is generated would be their insurance costs would be then. So if I come across somebody and they're saying, hey, it's 12%, 15%, I already know that there's a big window there to drop those costs down. Or maybe, we talk about risk management being three stools. The second of that stool is your claims. What's happening
Mm.
when you do have claims? Is your broker coming in there and helping you to finalize those claims? Is your carrier insurance company helping you fight those claims? Because you get a lot of folks in this space, in the construction space, that might get hired and then might get injured on the job, and all of a sudden they're out of work at home for quite an extended period of time, and that really hurts companies. Bad actors would help hurt companies because now your workers' compensation, your EMR, your mod rating is starting to creep up, and as that goes up, then all of a sudden your costs go up too. But you know when we go back to talking to a business owner and figure out what they need, number one question is, well, who do you work with? Who do you work for? Who are your ideal clients? Once I figure out who those are, if they say like the city of Chicago or I work for the federal government, like I already know if they say federal government, they're gonna need an insurance program that is like top notch and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily super expensive, but it's gonna have to have all of the lines of business. You might need, let's say you said a hospital, right? They might need, some environmental coverage. They might need some professional liability coverage, just because they're getting into spaces where, yes, they're gonna see more money on the contract, but then along those lines, it's like you're going to get more money, but then your costs are going to go up a little bit more because you're going to need to have a little bit more protection for getting into those spaces. So
Yeah.
that's where I see. Or another thing is, I ask them like, tell me a little bit about your operations, and they'll say, well, I have a cleaning company, I have a post-construction cleaning company, I do maybe a little bit of handyman services, and they go, okay, well, what about your insurance? How's that set up? Well, I've got one insurance policy for this company. I've got another insurance policy for that company. I've got another one for this company. And then I'm like, well, what coverages do you have there? And they're like, well, I have GL here, I have work comp here, I have GL here, I have umbrella here, but I have no auto here. And it just starts getting like this whole convoluted,
That's a
just
good point.
diorama. So then I go, okay, who's the owners of all those companies? He goes, I'm the sole owner, or it's
Ooh.
two people. I'm like, well, do you know you can, if you find the right insurance company, you can consolidate all of that into one carrier, and you can have all those coverages kind of follow you for your for one company, and list all the other companies as additional named insureds. That would eliminate having three different GL policies, three work comp, and we can talk about the pros and cons about doing that. And then my job is to give you all of the information, and then you make the decision on it. I've never
Yeah.
said, hey, you've got to do this. I've always said, here's everything that can go good, here's everything that go bad, you decide what you want to do. And at the end of the day, I've had people tell me like, I know I'm taking a risk, but this is what I want to do. I'm like, all right, like as long as this is, not what I would do, it's fine. I'll do whatever I'm the broker. I work for you. But then there's other people who's like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. Thank you for showing me that. Let's go that route. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, we've streamlined the insurance, we've cut down their costs, we've lowered
Hmm.
their rate, we've made an easy process. And at the end of the day, if they do have questions, they come back to me and they say, hey, how can we resolve this? The best compliments I get from my clients are when they tell me, you made the insurance so easy. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what you were doing behind the scenes, but for us, you took good care of it all up front, and we could get all those contracts. The claims were paid on time. The carriers A plus rated. We didn't have anything to worry about. We can focus on what we do, which is work, and let you focus on everything else, which is the policies, the certificates of insurance, the auto ID cards, any bonds that are needed. We do that with excellent customer service so that it's something that they don't even realize that's going on in the background. So again, it gets complicated the larger you grow, but also if you can find someone to explain it easily and hold your hand while you're doing it, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I think like now I'm thinking of like this. My mind started imagining stuff, and I'm thinking like if your business is in the middle, right? You gotta have one strong in the front, so like sales, marketing, anything that brings in the money, right? Then you got operations, HR, and support, where it's like we retain the client, so they retain the money. But then there's like this backside that is like super important. It's almost like watching your back, right? Like almost like if you're in war, like I think of Spartan, how they would put their shield in the back, and I would think that that's almost like that's keeping not the people only but the money, right? Protecting your from someone who's just coming from the back and just you're over here thinking you're going to war, and then bam, they just cut your legs from the back. So like I'm thinking insurance, wealth management, tax strategy, like anything that keeps the money in here, so that then you can again keep going to war, right? So and it's really cool because now I'm thinking of you like a superhero, which is really cool. I almost think of it like you're protecting people's back, the business's back, so that they're not in a situation where they get caught from behind. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
really
no, no,
interesting.
and that's a great analogy. I work out every morning trying to get a superhero body, but it
Pretty
hasn't
close, no?
hasn't come in yet. No.
Well, hey man, look,
But
here's the good news on the in the event. We're gonna do a private morning workout with everybody, but it's called
oh,
Mortality Motivation, trained by a former Army Ranger, and I can't disclose anything else, including his name, because we would get in legal trouble. But we're all gonna have a different type of training, so it's gonna be fun. So hopefully you get a superhero body by then. I know I'm going for that too.
well, count me in for the trading. I always love, testing my body, testing my mind. But yes, I would say risk management is a key component. Risk management is something that when companies grow to a certain scale, they have somebody that does it full time, right? They're analyzing all their contracts. They're analyzing, the policies. They're looking for exclusions. They're looking for gaps. And it's a full-time position. Now, as your company continues to scale, you start getting a risk management department. Now there's
Mm.
teams that do just risk management, right? So you think about the Coca-Colas of the world, you think about the Fortune 100s, they have entire teams dedicated to doing what I do, right? But business owners, especially in the middle size, even the larger scale, they might
They
not
don't.
have that. So instead of buying insurance from an insurance company direct and just getting policies, it's almost to their benefit to hire a consultant that would then go ahead and take a look at the program, look at any type of gaps that they have. We have something cool that since I've joined the Alera Group, I've been implementing a lot, and it's called the Alera GPS Snapshot, and it's a one-page illustration. It kind of looks like a graph chart of all of the limits, all of the coverages, the premiums, deductibles, what they're missing, and it's all in this nice, cool little chart. And I build that for my clients and people I work with based on the policies that they give me. So you give me your policies, I build it out, and maybe you fill out three of those charts, right? You light up three of them, and you're like, wait a minute, you've got like about 4 or 5 more bars here that are empty, just letting you know this might be something that you'd want to explore. And then I come with companies where all of these lines are lit up, right? They're all lit up. They're all, professional liability, general liability, hired and non-owned auto, commercial auto, work comp, employer's liability, a building personal property. Now they've got buildings that they've got to protect. So now it's all of a sudden, they've got everything, and then maybe I'll find like, oh, you know what? You've got no cyber policy, right? So here's another, you might have invested a ton, but there's a little bit of exposure that you're carrying. And that's the word that we use is exposure in our industry.
Yeah.
It's like, how much exposure are you carrying by not carrying those policies? Because you're exposing yourself. Like you said, and it's funny you use the shield analogy, right? Because the word exposure, it's like you're
Yeah.
exposed, right? So if
Yeah.
somebody comes with the shield and hits you right in that one little spot, your Achilles, right? You'll
Yeah.
drop to
Like
the
the movie
ground.
Troy. Yeah.
Yep, you'll drop right to the ground, and you've got to either, again, you got to pay out of pocket. You got to take on money that you've saved to pay out for claims. And I've seen it firsthand where it's like I wish I would have had that policy. I wish I would have, But then I've seen the flip side of that. Angel, is like, hey, I have commercial auto, so when somebody hit the commercial truck and tried to sue me, they couldn't. They could only sue the company, and the company had insurance. So now I protected myself, my personal assets, from being exposed by anything that happens with the company operations. And that's another conversation that maybe when we have the workshop, I can delve into, like how to protect the money that you have as a person, and how do you protect the money that the businesses has, and how do you separate those two? So if one goes down, you still can walk away with everything that you have, and you're still intact, right? The
Yeah.
worst case scenario is the company going down, you being tied to all of that, and then going down with it. When you talk about LLCs and S corps, you hit the nail on the head. Tax strategy, risk management strategy, financial strategy. It's all in the same wheelhouse. We're all like talking the same language, speaking the same language, which is why Ulysses and I connect so well, right? Because he saves the money, and then I say, well, where can they invest this? Can they either get more coverages, or do they have employee benefits? Do they have any health benefits for the employees? Because if they don't, now they could take this money that they've saved from their finances, from their financial planning, save the money they saved from the insurance, and now I think I came into a business owner one time and I'm like, "Hey, we saved you $60,000 in your insurance costs. What do you want to do with it?" And he goes, "I want to get health and benefits for my people." I'm like, "Perfect. Take that money, use it as starting block, and now you've got all the seed money that you need to get this program going." And that's only going
Nice.
to make your company stronger, and it's going to protect your employees in the long run, and it's going to help with retention as well, because now you're offering your employees things that want to make them stay. So that's
Yep.
another component of risk management, and what I do that I leverage for my clients to help them become sticky not only with their clients, but also with their employees so that they can have a long lasting company and build towards that legacy that they're working towards.
Boom. Boom. Now I can tell already that if we were to have like a master class in risk management, insurance, claims, employee benefit, I'm pretty sure like no matter who you put in front of you, you could probably tackle whatever challenge they have. So I'm super excited to have you. I know we're coming into the top of the hour, so I'm gonna ask you. I have two questions for you.
All right.
One, James usually has a roulette thing that he pulls out, but since I don't have my roulette thing, I'm gonna make up the question myself. But the first one is, what got you to really commit to coming to the cleaning profits, man, and be a roundtable leader for the space? Outside
It's
of course, my great sales skills.
absolutely.
Just kidding.
Well, supporting a fellow Latino definitely is important, right? That you always get to my heart by going right to that route. But you know, I really got to thank Ricky Regalado, Rosalado Services. They were the first ones that brought me on to the Cleaning Cocktails, the first conference that they had in Chicago. That's where you and I got a chance to meet. And that's where I got in front of a lot of business owners in the cleaning space. And I realized like, you know, they're all in this growth path, right? Where the industry itself is growing, the opportunities
Mhm.
are growing, and they're right on along with it, right? So if it's like a rocket ship, they're on it, they're on the rocket ship. And I was like, wait a minute, like I want to be part of this rocket ship too, right? Like I want to be part of this. I want to see these companies grow. I love seeing their success stories and they're real people. So when you put on something similar in your space and developing your own people, your own following, where it's a little bit of overlap from where that took place, then I said, you know what, the cleaning industry, the janitorial space is one where I want to fully invest myself. I want to be there for them, and where they are, I want to be. So the cleaning cocktails, we did the Chicago one, we did the Washington D.C. one, and now we're going out to Denver, and we're really excited about kind of going back there and meeting new folks, but also spending time with folks that we've already had built relationships with. So again,
100%.
the cleaning industry is definitely has my heart, and being part of it and being part of this opportunity, I really want to thank you because I could talk about insurance and risk management all day. I'm kind of nerdy in that space where it excites me, right? Because it's what I've been doing for the last 20 years, but it's definitely a passion, and I'm looking forward to speaking to other business owners. Hopefully, my
Yeah,
passion rubs off.
man. It comes off, man. It makes me. I was about to be like, hey, I'm about to go into insurance. Like that's how passionate you sound. So it's usually really cool because like the more passionate, not just passion without knowledge. So when you have passion, you have knowledge, and you have results in the space, you come off so strong that people just want to be around you. Like that's just facts, right? So like that's why when you meet these top speakers, you hear them and you're like, I'm about to. How do I get in your circle? Like how do I get have access to you? You know, because you're just oozing this like passion and drive. So yeah, no, super excited to have you, man. I have one last question for you. You ready?
Yes, ready.
All right. Top three Mexican like music artist.
Oh man, so I don't know if you checked my background, man, but I used to be a DJ back
Of
in the day
course.
in Cornell College because there was no exposure to Mexican music. I was the one that was exposing, and back then we had Napster. Remember Napster?
Mm-hmm.
I had an MP3 collection of norteñas, rancheras, corridos. It was over 3,000 songs long, and I would create mixtapes. I would create like Los Tucanes versus Los Huracanes, Los Reileros versus Conjunto Primavera. And I remember making these CDs, because before you could get the MP3s, rip them right on CDs, put
Oh
them
yeah,
right
right
into the
there and then.
player, and I used to give them to my dad, and my dad had a portfolio full of just all the CDs that I burnt, and he would be playing the best music because I was in Iowa, he's in Chicago, right? He had a camioneta, he was the king, and they would ask him like, "Hey, who makes these CDs for you?" Like, "Oh, my son does." He goes, "Hey, can he make a CD for me?" So in college, a side hustle was selling these CDs that I would make these mixtapes, Mexican mixtapes. So number one, I'm the fan of the solo narco corrido guy.
Okay,
So
okay,
number one, my favorite is Saul Vieira. Saul
okay, okay.
Vieira, he's very low key. He was actually he was killed, a tragic murder, like most of these guys
Yeah,
are,
of
right?
course.
But he was known as a mimicker, like impersonator of Chalino Sanchez.
Okay,
So Saul Vieira is basically a Chalino Sanchez 2.0, but a Mexican American Chalino Sanchez, right?
okay,
So I
okay.
gravitated toward his story. Saul Vieira being number one. Number two, I gotta go with my boy, Jose Alfredo Jimenez,
José Alfredo
because
Jiménez, yeah.
I'm
The
not
OG,
I,
OG.
I can't sing like him. I thought I was named after him. I found out I wasn't, but still I developed a love for him. And then probably the third group I would have to say would be Conjunto Primavera.
They're pretty good.
Norteños. Yeah, I mean, I had their live, I seen them live. And a lot of these guys, Angel, I've seen them in person. I used to
Nice.
dress with the Tejana. I had my ostrich boots. My wife still makes fun of me for it. I used to drive my dad's truck when he let me borrow it to go to the Mexican clubs. So I've seen Huracanes, I've seen, Ramon Ayala. I've seen them in person,
Sí,
right?
sí.
And if you put the song on, I still got the moves. I don't dance that much anymore, but I used to be really good on the dance floor.
Some good times with the belts and the boots, hechos de hueso y todo el
Uh,
rollo. Like I had them too. I had black, white, red, green.
oh
I used
man.
to dress up like that too, man, back in the day. No, I
So
completely
we
get
got to
you.
bring it back. We got to bring it back.
Oh man,
It's in there.
yo soy
Good
más.
shopping,
I'm
man.
more like Sonora Escándalos top, and then Vicente Fernandez. You never go wrong, and then Pepe Aguilar. I'm more like the mariachi route. You
The
know.
slow ballad, yeah, the
Oh
ranchero,
yeah, you get me
the
a mariachi
tequila.
next to me, and then just it's like sale el nopal, you know, like it doesn't. No, man, but thank you so much for being here, brother. It's a pleasure. I'm super pumped to have you at the event. Super pumped for people to be able to learn from you, to pick your brain during these roundtables, and then to hopefully also with the people that we bring, be able to impress you guys and serve you guys as roundtable leaders. So I just want to thank you for being here, man.
Thank you, Angel, for the opportunity. I'm definitely excited to get out to Denver. Your stomping grounds and provide value as much as I can, and also develop some key relationships that I hope to continue to establish for a long time and see these companies continue to scale. So thank you for putting it on, man. I know it takes a lot to put on something like this, so keep up the great work, and I'll definitely be seeing you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, brother, and we'll see you here in September.
All right, sounds good. Take care, everybody.